This is the Sounding Board podcast with Hutchie and Damo. Thanks to Drinkwise. If you're choosing to have a drink, choose to Drinkwise.
Nice to have your company for the final time in 2021 on the Sounding Board for Drinkwise. If you're choosing to have a drink, choose to Drinkwise. Hutchie's harpooned us back into the main studio here at South Bank for this final episode 44, Series 6 of the Sounding Board for Drinkwise, Craig Hutchison.
And the last time you have to interrupt your 22 weeks annual leave, Damo, so it's nice to see you, and I know you're a little bit foggy because you've been doing the rounds, shaking hands, kissing babies, thanking everyone for the year. So it's nice to see you, and Merry Christmas to you, Damo. What do you got planned for the holidays?
Nothing at this stage. Just as we speak, the boys have still got a little bit of schooling left. Not much, but a little bit. And beyond that, Hutchie, we've just left it completely open. I'd imagine I'll be hitting the road at some stage in the car, just driving up north a little bit, but nothing locked in yet. Because that potential trip that you and you mooted some weeks ago overseas, probably not.
Have you ruled that out on the back of the variant?
I don't rule anything in. I don't rule anything out these days, but it's probably drifted into the less than 50% chance, I think, Hutchie.
As a fundamental conservative in life and a warrior, which I respect, by the way. I don't mock it. I respect it. But
you don't respect it. You do mock it.
How worried are you about the variant?
Well, I'm not, but interestingly enough, a lot of people seem to be, don't they? There's a race to be worried again, isn't there? It's the race within the race, this one.
Well, what I've found, and I don't know what I'm talking about, obviously, just read up like everybody else, but you need to read a lot of content to get remotely to the centre of the truth, because fear sells. Everyone is pushing the fear product because it's driving clickbait and consumption. I don't know about you. I've read more online stories in the last 3 days than I've in a month. So
see, I don't anymore, because those articles, Hutchie, are just handpicked from other articles, I reckon. There's no experts on this apart from the proper people trained in the space. And getting access to those people, you can turn a blind eye to some you don't want to listen to as well.
You got to go behind the paywall to figure out what it's here, and there's already X cases. Then you go behind the paywall, and it's in Howard Springs.
But what's it mean? What's it mean?
Very, very tricky to find.
Omicron is what we were talking about. The latest variant.
Not a very marketable term, is it?
No, Delta wasn't it? Delta was easy to market.
Very old school. But
you
anyway,
notice that it is predictable, isn't it? I don't want to single out news outlets, but
that's all we ever do here is single out news outlets.
Well, it would be unfair to single out one over another. But I reckon there was one news outlet I watched last night that went for more than 50% of its total time on air for that period, talking about this new wave that's going to hurt us again.
Fear sells, and it's genuine. I guess there's some real genuine concern about it. So
it's predictable, though, isn't it?
That's fair enough. I've got a couple of things just to land with you off the top before we get into our.
Just before we do, I've never, in the previous waves of it, I hadn't come across it personally too much. I think everyone knew someone who knew someone, or you might have had one point of contact. Multiple this time around.
Well,
I'd even say, I'd say a dozen people I know reasonably well.
I'd say inner city, which is where we generally hang out. It's everywhere. Yeah. That's the sad reality. It's gone from.
Have you noticed that yourself though? Just this last batch of it.
Yeah. And not much can be done. And hopefully it slows down a little bit. And Sydney seems better. 150 odd cases a day. We're still at 1,000 here, and it seems to be like the profile of those 1,000 cases is really headed into inner city bars and restaurants. And
yep. So just for this show today, Hutchie, and this is you've actually in on this plan, which is unusual for you. You've done a little bit of prep.
No, I've done no prep.
Well, I saw you for 30 seconds as you were having your coffee from the cafe there as we walked in today. That we're going to do the Soundies today. We've been talking about the Soundies for a good 9 months, I think.
Could be a spectacular failure, and very much like playing at the back end of a season. We've got all summer to think about it if it doesn't go our way too. That's the problem we've got. Just before we get into the Soundies, I saw Matt Doran's speech on Sunrise on Sunday.
Yep.
I'm sure most of you would have seen it on social media, if not live on the program. Two things sprung to mind.
The reporter who didn't listen to Adele's album before interviewing Adele, and then Sony, the record company, effectively pulling the content of the interview for that reason.
One, his apology was pitch perfect. If you are looking at how to handle a public situation,
I thought of you when I watched it.
He was genuine, warm.
Took a lot of heat.
Contrite.
More than he needed to.
Took more blame than he was owed.
Yeah,
way more blame than
he was owed.
In fact,
he didn't need to admit to half the stuff he did admit to.
And his references to, subtle references to a line in the song, as Adele herself writes,
Oh, you like that?
Yeah, I loved it because it spoke to.
It's good that he's read it. Listen to it now.
I ended up listening to it. Is what he's saying. But but you worked that out for yourself, and I thought the way he handled it was superb.
Delivery was good. It seemed to be an auto cue delivery, but I thought it was very good.
I watched closely whether it was auto cued. I'm certain it was.
Yeah.
I'm certain it was. I reckon he went off auto cue a little bit off script. I reckon there was a little bit of freestyle in the middle, but it was an auto cue.
It was there if he needed it,
and it is the quintessential example of how to handle. And you look at the reaction he got on a largely negative Twitter world, which is getting worse by the day. He won people over, and that's how you can build your brand.
Off a mistake. Yeah, you've always said that. It was over the top, though. We touched on it this time last week, how over the top it had already got to with regard to the criticism of him. And we also discussed the element of the control of the content of the interview from Channel 7 by the record company, which pulled the access to it, even though they'd filmed it and paid for it. So there was that aspect of it too.
You were onto that earlier. My views stiffened over the week, just thinking about it. Like, you were onto this earlier about how outrageous the behaviour of Sony was on this.
Oh,
I'm with you. He is doing them a favour.
But he's Channel 7's paid.
They paid to do them a favour, right?
Full cross, yeah.
That's what happens when you buy something and are helping someone is it who owes who what gets distorted on the way through. That's happened here.
You weren't big on that last week, though, has he? Go now.
He's entitled to do as much or as little preparation as he wants for the interview. It only reflects on him and him alone at the end of the day.
And as I said, Hutchie, I think there were 427,000 things I would have rather had done myself than listen to an Adele album.
And I tell you what will happen next time around is I think what will happen is the television networks will take a sterner view on the.
What comes of the product?
The veto clause. I can't remember it ever being used before. So that clause, you're going to look at that now and say, well, I'm not signing that.
Well, maybe you don't know if it's been used before. This one got public, didn't it? Very quickly.
That's fair. So he handled it super. He might be going home at dinner at night saying, can you believe the hoo-ha about this? And I can't. Anyway, I'm going to man up and take my medicine tomorrow. But he handled it perfectly. And
did you like the fact that it came late in the show too in question? The first time he'd probably properly had the chance to apologise. So you're watching, you're knowing it's coming. Is it like a nice little tease element to it as well, was there?
Well, I'll tell you exactly what would happen there is the EP would be A, trying to make sure that happened at the end of the show to hold the audience for the whole show.
Yep.
And B, the EP would have been more nervous than Matt himself because the network heavies would have been saying, make sure he gets this right. Have you checked it?
Would it have gone as high as the Kerry Stokes heavy?
No, I don't think so.
Might have.
I don't think so. It didn't have any political consequence, so I think it just stays at the kind of exec level. But there was a lot of eyes on it, and it was perfectly handled. And it should become part of his stick now. He should laugh about himself.
Yes,
ongoing.
That's the key to it now. And we reckon we suggested this last week. It might have been a bit raw for him at that point in time, but we suggested an old school footy show style of parody with him singing an Adele song as part of the recovery process.
Yes, that would be a fair parody, wouldn't it? And I think if you want to be honest, Matt's got a strong profile, or had it, but he's got a much stronger profile now. Like his brand, his own brand, grew through it. If 3 times as many Australians don't know who he is now as 3 weeks ago, I'll go he.
Yep. Hutchie, we talked about political fallout and whatnot, and we did thrash out the whole Tim Payne situation on the show last week. The follow-on effect of it was that Pat Cummins has since been made captain, Steve Smith vice-captain. I still can't get my head around Steve Smith having any form of official leadership in Australian cricket, given what happened in South Africa in 2017. I just cannot get my head around it. I'm all for, I'm the number one ticket holder of the everyone deserves a second chance bandwagon.
Are you?
I'm all for that. But it doesn't mean you get a second chance at what you once had. You get a second chance at the generics, not the specifics. And I know the vice captain is different to the captain, but let's face it, the way he carries himself inside that locker room, the way Pat Cummins will toil and bowl 25 overs on a hot day and have not had the headspace, he's going to become the quasi-captain of this cricket team very quickly.
It feels like a co-captaincy to me.
It almost feels like he's captain, but publicly we're going to make Pat.
I don't agree with that. Pat's his own man, but there'll be autonomy decision-making. I got no problem with it. I think it was the right soft landing. Enough time's gone by.
It's leadership, though, Hutchie. It's leadership. This guy was in charge of something that will forevermore be... In 50 years' time, they'll still be talking about the day the Australians cheated with sandpaper on a cricket ball.
That's true.
And it might even be 100 years.
We are a redemption nation.
We are, and I'm glad we are. And I'm glad he's got the chance to redeem, and he has, but not as a captain in an official capacity.
What was the alternative? Old mate toasted cheese sandwiches in his pocket. That was the alternative. Like, what was the alternative, really?
Well, there was always alternatives.
Ham and cheese and tomato.
Hutchie, they pitchforked Tim Payne in outside of the Tasmanian team to be the captain, effectively.
Yep. Mitch Marsh, to warn his idea, was probably the only other
I didn't
option.
mind that idea.
Yep.
I mean, I know he's got his detractors, Matty Wade, but...
Matty Wade.
He really fails to deliver. He made 200s in the last Ashes series. I know he's got his distractors, but you talk about what are the options? There's an option. Mitch Marsh, yes, there's an option. There were options there. I agree with you with Marnus Labuschagne. I wouldn't have had him anywhere near it the way he carries on. But
fair chance Alex Carey will be the vice captain inside 12 months, isn't there?
Yeah, but see, I don't like that idea. I mean, you've got to me, your ability. I know we've historically had people like Bob Simpson came out of retirement to help us through there for a while. To me, you've got to have... You're almost your best player as captain.
Maybe you should make a comeback for your Sheffield Shield days and write an opinion piece. Get some comments from Martin Stillman or Tony Donamaid or,
Les Stillman. Martin was the son, I think.
Les Stillman. Tony Donamaid or Darren Ramshaw or dig up one of,
Great Johnny Scholes.
Simon Davis.
Dav Watmore.
Oh, yeah, Johnny Scholes was quotable, wasn't
he was a great
Dav
man
was
to
quotable.
deal with. Dav was a great man to deal with, yeah.
Well, I tell you why Johnny Scholes was good
Sean
to you.
Graff.
Was good to you. Or Sean was a dial quote in your day.
He's still running cricket in Victoria.
Still a dial quote. Johnny Scholes was a North Melbourne supporter, wasn't he? Big North Melbourne
man. I think he played football for North Melbourne, didn't he, I think?
Good mates with Dennis Pagan. That's why you would have liked him.
He was a good man, Johnny.
He should dig up some of the old Victorian, alumni, Damo, and ask him to write an opinion piece.
Simon Davis. Simon O'Donnell. Tony Donamaid's got a...
Yes.
Yeah, where did I see him bob up recently? As in in a very prominent role. He's come back from...
Selected for Cricket Australia.
There you go.
He's the third selector.
And one of the really good men, as far as I could tell, Hutchie, to deal with.
Yep. He hasn't got Foxtel yet, but that's okay. You better watch the televised games.
Is that right?
No, I used to make...
It was Merv Hughes, didn't he?
It was a long-running joke of William Pickering himself about Merv didn't have Foxtel.
Now, tell me...
He had to go to the pub to watch the cricket. Pick the team. I got to go down the local...
There was wisdom in his madness move. You had to go to the pub to watch cricket.
I'm underprepared for the Soundies.
Oh, yeah?
But I'm happy to have a casual look back at the year.
Oh, yeah?
But for sake of a bit of fun, you can play your over-the-top opener if you
want. Before we do, one more topic. The Perth Test match is null and void now, I would have thought. It always looked to be 100-1. There was a late pitch with border issues and protocols that may have been appeasing to the tourists, but it seems, I would say now, not happening. I would have thought Hobart might have shot itself in the foot too when it came to the statement the Cricket Tasmania made against Cricket Australia last week over the handling of the Tim Payne thing. Does that come into play when? And don't tell me it doesn't.
Does it come into play
when Cricket Australia sits down to think, should we give this now free Test match to Hobart or double up in Sydney or Melbourne? What happens here?
Put it this way: the only people less likely to host the Perth Test is Tasmania at the moment, and it's unfortunate. But
is it because of the statement?
I think it contributes for sure.
Well, it shouldn't. Should it? Cricket Australia should be big enough to give it to that venue, which deserves it.
As a one-time Sheffield Shield beat writer, you should know cricket is built upon politics.
Particularly this country's
It is the most political sport.
It's still run by the states, though, cricket here in Australia.
The CA answer to the states.
Yeah, they do.
Yep.
Yep.
Which is fundamentally there's a structural issue.
So they would have made that statement knowing the decision has already been made to not give them the test. Is that what you're saying? Because Hutchie, I can't recall when you talk about umbrellas of operations, any body that works beneath the main body, as Cricket Tasmania does in the Cricket Australia hierarchy, I've never seen anything as pointed as that last week. That actually was almost personal, some of those comments.
Yeah,
I liked it. I loved it.
And
I didn't disagree with some of it.
Fundamentally, if Cricket Australia cannot get itself to being above the states in the structure, how does it ever get autonomy to do what it needs to do?
Yeah.
I'll leave aside its opinions. By the way, did you read the Sydney Morning Herald story on the background of the Tim Payne story coming out?
Was that the one? Yeah.
On Saturday?
I believe I did, yes.
Where it was revealed that the story was taken to the Sydney Morning Herald and Channel 9.
No, I didn't read this part. No, I'm thinking another one. Okay, tell me.
About 2 years ago, Nine had the option of running the story.
Right.
And there was a producer, I think it was Sean Mulcahy, that was named in the paper, who had taken the story to Cricket Australia and thought about, and they got close to doing it, but for whatever reason, it didn't happen at the time. And according to the SMH, they felt that the source of the story this time around was not the victim in question.
Okay.
It calls into question, doesn't it, how it became public.
Was that presented as we should have written, said, published story?
There was a little bit of that, I think.
You don't like that sort of journalism as a rule?
Well, a lot of people do it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people,
You either do it and live with the consequences, good or bad, of doing it, or if you choose not to, you haven't got the right to mop it up.
I agree with that. But a lot of people have got the secret burn a hole in my pocket defence, haven't they? Like, oh, we could have done this but didn't. And, we're telling you now we could have, but we... Yeah. It wasn't quite that blatant, but there was a hint of it, I must admit, in the story.
Yeah, okay. You would have told the story, would you, as a journalist? If you were back on your beat, where you just basically went with anything you knew, and I mean that respectfully, I always said that, because that was your approach. If you could prove it, 100%, you would go with it. Would you have gone with it? I think you would have in your 20s.
I think
maybe not in your 40s.
I think in my young 20s, I absolutely would have.
Yeah, but not in your 40s? Would that be a fair?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I'm very happily retired, but that way, decade plus retirement.
But the perspective on these matters comes into play, doesn't it?
You get older, wiser, and you grow, I think. But
I basically said that last week. I don't think I would have done it in my 40s or 50s as I am
but
now.
I mean, you understand the counter argument to that, which is
absolutely no, and in fact, I feel bad in admitting to some of that sometimes. Yeah. You wanted to do something about the year in review, did you, before we got to the Soundies?
You take shortcuts. You've told us that during the year, and we respect that and appreciate it.
What shortcuts have I taken?
Well, you've let a few go through the keeper these days.
For contextual reasons, yeah, yep. I do. Yeah, I'm very comfortable to do it now.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you've earned that right because of your achievements.
And I think the subjects of some of those issues, Hutchie, to which you wouldn't even know about, would be grateful of that and respectful of it too.
No names, no pack drill.
Yep.
Don't mean to sound like page 13, but an all-points bulletin for the summer.
Right.
My understanding is this, Damo.
Yep.
That never before have the PAP business in Australia been briefed as often as they are being briefed by their subjects.
Wow. What are you referring to, Hutchie?
I'm talking, it doesn't discriminate men, women, young, old. There is a lot of briefing going on. I'm told the photographers' phones have never ran hotter. People repositioning themselves post-COVID, brand building, new emergers to public. People have been around a while, want to reinvent. If you see a picture in a paper and the person looks a little shocked at the photo, chances are they orchestrated it in the first place. And next time you go and see a photographer, next time you see a photographer in a park on the corner of a street,
he or she's there for a reason.
Walk up and ask them why they're there and how do they know the subject's going to be there.
I really wish I knew why you were raising this out of nowhere today, because I know you well enough to know that you would be referring to something and someone very, very specific.
You know what I reckon happened? People who were used to being photographed or wanted to be photographed for a long time had to deal with 18 months of deprivation. And there is an overcorrection going on, Damo.
Is it possible that whoever it is you may be referring to may normally take great offence at being papped in a public sense?
I'm saying there's dozens and dozens of public identities at the moment.
They're ringing up the photographers.
I can rule out myself in the bushes at the footy show being one of them. Okay. That was an accident. Right. But there are a lot of subjects who have not been able to walk the same red carpets, go to the same openings, who have been indoors for a long time.
But they're still getting their coffee at their local cafe, and they might just let the photographer know they might be wearing a certain brand to walk down to grab coffee at 10:07 on a Tuesday morning.
People you wouldn't believe, guys and girls, are briefing. And that's...
But where's this stuff appear, though, Hutchie? It's not necessarily in the mainstream media, is it?
Yeah,
actually, it's in the Herald Sun.
No, there's a lot of it going on. You just keep a keen eye over the holidays at the amount of social pictures you see of people who might be out for a run, or they might be out for a walk, or they might be.
Can you tell me who it is you've bumped into? You clearly.
This has been building on me for weeks. This is not one person. This is I'm talking dozens of public subjects.
Well, you used to operate in this space. Your company actually set itself up in LA to be this type of organisation.
We did, and it went on more than I thought when we did it. But
really?
I'm saying it's at fever pitch. The post-COVID camera race is on. There's only so many colour
I'm actually going to go out of my way to pay attention to this now, because normally you see a photo of a smiling face. No, turn it off. I'm going to pay attention to this.
And if people look a bit defensive being photographed,
yep,
that might not be because they've been papped. It might be because the photographer was a couple of minutes late. The scheduled time.
Actually, we've done a little bit like Channel 7 did
on
the
weekend. Throw to the Soundies.
No. We're doing what Channel 7 did with Matt Doran. People know it's coming. We're just making sure
it's not going to be any good. Let's get it out of the way.
Do you want to reflect on the year before in any way before we get to the Soundies, or do you want to leave a little bit at the end of the set? Because the Soundies could fall really flat.
Damo, it's time for.
It's going to fall flat.
Welcome to the inaugural The Soundies Awards with Craig Hutchison and Damian Barrett.
So as you'd expect from us, we're fundamentally unprepared. This is going to be nothing but tongue-in-cheek.
Jane's actually got a fresh opener. That's our first fresh opener on this show, Hutchison.
And it's going to go over a lot of old jokes. And if you've lost interest at
Tune
this
out
point,
again.
series whatever, episode whatever, 17 minutes in, head for the sheds.
Can I start? I just want to get one out of the way just to see how we go. So we're going to make these the best ofs, Hutchie. It's not the worst ofs, it's the best ofs.
Right.
Even if it's a derogatory type of award, we're going to refer to it as the best of. So I'm just going to start with the best fake barbecue photo opportunity.
Well, the nominees obviously are.
The nominees are, and there's a few. Matthias Cormann did one early in the year. Now, Matthias Cormann, former Australian politician, just did one. But then it got trumped by what Scott Morrison did. He was at Kirribilli. He was serving one of his quasi-quarantine periods. He tried to make himself relatable. Hey, look at me on day 12 of my quarantine. I'm cooking a barbecue. Now, Hutchie, on closer inspection of photo posted on social media by Scott Morrison at the barbecue, trying to be really cool, holding the spoon in a way that is not natural. That's just one thing.
Yep.
The other ingredients and food around the table, to the best of my ability, and I know a little bit about the kitchen, it was to make a curry. There was eggplant. There were curry sauces. Another problem. You get to the barbecue itself. No heat on barbecue. Barbecue's not on. And then and on the weekend, we just had another barbecue of Daniel Andrews and Elbow. Have a look at those steaks, actually. They look beautiful steaks. But they have not been cooked on the barbecue in that photo, Hutchie. That is an open grill. There is not one grill line on those steaks, Hutchie. As much as I want to partake in those steaks. So, best fake barbecue. No, so I reckon Elbow and Daniel Andrews trumped ScoMo for that particular award this year.
I'm going with ScoMo, albeit on the weekend. Have you ever looked at Dan Andrews' tongs? You don't use kitchen tongs on your fake barbecue.
No,
PR
see,
shop.
I hadn't picked up on that. That's a good look at that
are
photo.
Your standard kitchen tongs. You got to get the big dude
That's
tongs.
a salad tong.
That's a salad tong they're using.
That's a lettuce leaf tong. No, it's a good point. That's a good pickup. So he wins.
I'm going with ScoMo because he was taking his own personal photographer. He had more chances than anyone to get it right because he got his own snapper.
No, it's a good pickup on yours on the tongs.
But the tongs on the Dan Andrews. Well, the best use of Zoom is easy. I'm not even going to be any nominations here. The winner is very clearly.
Well, before we name the winner, let's go back to the time at when the coach of Collingwood Footy Club resigned.
Mark Robinson here. Sorry, cutting you off. Congratulations.
Comments and mentioned very much
Mark, in respect to the senior coach, Serge.
Nathan, Bucks, can you hear me? No, bad weather up here. I'm not getting the connection. Can you hear me, Bucks?
Yes, you're coming in loud and clear, Robbo. I'm apprehensive.
There you go. So Nathan Buckley.
And that went on, Hutchie. Yeah. That went on. We've actually cut that back to 23 seconds. It goes for about 5 minutes.
Yep. The best taking out the trash I'm going to jump ahead to because there are some significant nominations, Damo.
Well, this is your domain, Hutchie. It was an old journalistic phrase, taking out the trash, but you've given it a fresh life on the sounding board in the last 3 or 4 years. People are onto it now. We get told regularly and alerted and tipped off 3 or 4 times a minimum a week now on taking out the trash. Take it away for this year's award, Hutchie.
Yeah, look, apologies go to Basketball Australia for taking the Liz Cambar's findings out at 5 p.m. on a Friday. I respect the timing. I say the hand on heart, it was magnificent. Liberal Party with Tim Smith's presser on Melbourne Cup Day was right up there. I thought Port Melbourne's attempt to release the Gary Ayres news in the middle of the Alistair Clarkson storm.
You love that one.
Was superb.
That was a good one.
I thought the Adelaide 36ers parting way with Connor Henry right on the back of Teague sacking was magnificent. There were some magnificent ones.
Yep.
But the clear winner.
Do we need a drum roll for this? I think Jane's got a drum roll.
The clear winner.
Oh, she does.
If there is one time to drop a story for the year, you drop it an hour and a half before the quills because every journalist in Australia, unfortunately, is at the bar early at 4 p.m. and not going back under any circumstances. So the 4:35 p.m. Friday drop of the Robert Doyle harassment report was the winner of the taking out the trash for 2021. There could have been a world war declared China and the US could have duked it out, and no one was leaving the bar at the Quills.
And another strain of COVID, and they sort of ignored that as well.
Yep.
No fear on that night.
Yeah, there was a Sunday. What happens with the Quills is people walk in Saturday lunchtime and say, big story drop last night. Can you just put a fresh follow-up on that tomorrow?
Put a staff writer's bollard on that tomorrow.
We
Get yourself.
missed it.
Yeah.
So the taking out the trash, and I don't make fun of the topic. I make fun of the timing of it.
Fair enough. Let's move on to the best breaking
Very
of
serious report, and but yeah, it was taken out. It was taken at the wrong time.
At the pre-dinner drink stage of that awards night. Let's go to another one of our favourites, Archie, when someone breaks his or breaks her silence. So many options. We had even a recent addition to the nominees for this one, Hutchie. Bonnie Payne, Tim Payne's wife, sat down with Hamish McLaughlin only 2 Sundays ago to speak at length enough for a double-page spread times 2, 4 pages of interview. And then a day later, one of the news limited outlets said, Bonnie Payne breaks her silence on social media. So that was a nomination only because there was only one winner of this award this year, Herald Sun, about a month after the Olympics. One of the great images, Dean Boxall, the coach of Ariana Titmus, who celebrated in a way like no other person's ever celebrated anything on the moment Ariana Titmus won her first gold medal, had done 367 interviews before he got back from the Olympics. And then a month later, interview in the Herald Sun, breaks his silence. Oh, we've all done it, Hutchie. All of these awards we would have won in previous years, by the way.
It breaks the silence. Hopefully we've done nothing else. We've put a little bit more rigour into the sub-editor's world of breaks silence for the year. The best source attribution, also known as the most courageous journalism of the year.
Yep.
It was hard to go past a few. The Age, sources with knowledge of the process. Byline was the Age's view.
What about the use of the phrase impeccable source in the Herald Sun?
Fox Sports and their staff writers.
We interviewed staff writer or writers.
Tom Brown's insight into David Teague sacking, where he quoted quote-unquote influential direct blues sources. But I can't go past an old favourite, Damo.
Yeah.
Drum roll if we can.
Yeah.
That's not a drum roll, that's like a gag. Not going to hear one. You need to bring that sound effect. Nothing's funny.
I don't mind that sound effect. We can use that one in a minute.
The Herald Sun's secret list manager can't get beaten. Like when you're an unnamed list manager,
yeah,
the unnamed list managers have become part of football folklore.
It's Chris Pelkin, isn't it?
No, I don't think that's right, is it?
I don't know. Isn't it? I think he could have been.
You can take that up. The words of Damian, not necessarily attributable to
may not have been, but
Sports Entertainment Network or its publishing properties. The secret list manager. If you are going to sit by. If you're not going to be named and criticise those that are calling out names, that is the next level. A secret list manager.
Secret list manager. All right, we'll do a couple of here.
I'm going to tell you all the mistakes people have made, but I'm not prepared to tell you who I am.
My own. Best police investigation went to the Victoria Police. Actually doing an amazing amount of work, particularly in as we speak on the missing campers. But they get the award this year for the Chief Commissioner of Victoria Police saying this: we have been unable to determine the substance on the plate in relation to the famous Kmart plate used by Nadia Bartel. We'll move on. Best soundbite of the year, Hutchie.
I had that as my best boat race of the year, which was the predetermined outcome.
Okay.
Kmart plate.
Well, I've given that the best police investigation
best
award.
Best boat race.
Best boat. Okay, it could be either. Best soundbite. We love people who talk in soundbites usually, but I loathe the bloke who's won the award this year, and there's only one person who could win it this year because that's all he does. He talks in sound bites.
Resilience, strength, character, determination. That's what beats a virus. Never fear.
How good's that for a sound
Good
bite,
soundbite. Yeah. And the best knockout.
That was ScoMo, by the way.
The best knockout punch, and also winning the best doorstop award.
Oh yeah,
goes to the French. Is it the Prime Minister? French President, isn't it?
Emmanuel Macron.
Yes.
For this.
Can you trust Scott Morrison again? Can you trust Scott Morrison again?
We discussed. I do respect.
Can you trust him though?
I mean, we will see what he will deliver. I have a lot of respect for your country. I have a lot of respect and a lot of friendship for your people. I just say when we have respect, you have to be true and you have to behave in line and consistently with this value.
Do you think he lied to you?
I don't think. I know.
That last line.
That is one of the great quotes of our time.
Of our time.
I don't think. I know.
That will be used in the campaign without question by the Federal Labor Party. So
now, actually, there's also a best warming category this year, and forget all the other
I'm
nominees.
just nervous here. Just get the cutaway shot.
There's this.
The nominees are.
We'll pap you on the way out of this studio, okay? So we'll get Jay Town down here to pap you on the way out.
Jay Town.
So put your collar down because you are the standout runaway winner with this. It started with an article earlier in the year in one of the entertainment sections. I can't recall if it was The Age or the Herald Sun, but you were juggling balls, you were holding a cricket bat, you were kicking a soccer ball. It then went into new realms when you and the beautiful Claire ended up appearing together on Don't Shoot the Messenger. The warming of Craig Hutchison from that, as I described you at the time, Hutchie, that forgotten chicken fillet at the back in the recesses of the freezer in the kitchen. It's been there for 3 years, Hutchie. You're being defrosted and you're almost ready to be eaten. As you've been warmed, Hutchie.
Thank you, Damo. It's been a life's ambition to be a little less hostile. And I think I'm slowly making some territory, but a long, long way to go. I'm a 1 out of 10.
I'll give you one on a platter for myself, Hutchie.
Yeah,
There's a best renter for the year, and I want to jump in first before you probably talk about another renter. Peter V'landys actually used the phrase "I live rent-free" in their heads, and he does in every single person in sports administration, but particularly Victorian racing people. He lives rent-free in their heads.
Worst Neighbour of the Year award goes to you, who, of course, had the famous spat with your next-door neighbour in Middle Park after they did some building, inadvertently flooded your house. You had to get the insurance involved. You potted them a few times on this podcast, and he said to me, don't stop potting them because they're getting angry about it. And then all of a sudden they wrote to us legally saying, don't mention them ever again. I've clearly taken that on board. And then you moved out.
You grabbed me one day, just for the record on this. You did know I was down in the dumps a little bit one day. You said, listen, mate, what's wrong? And I made the mistake of hinting to you, which I never normally do, that there was a little issue. That's all it was, just a very minor little hiccup, a little wrinkle in our house situation. And you just picked it up and ran with it and gave it a life of its own, Hutchie. And I forever regret telling you something that I should have kept private. And I didn't even give you much anyway.
And I've paid the letter they wrote to us the respect it deserves, turn it into content. The Small Claims Tribunal is still involved, as is the Ombudsman. You are back in the house, albeit not talking to the neighbour. If you're driving past Damo's house, it's the house to the left
Hutchie,
that he's in dispute with, not the right.
No, it's not.
You just
I was actually trying to work it out.
That's an old trick of journalism, is you put the inaccuracy forward and see if it gets flushed out.
If it's are you looking at the house or are you looking from the house?
I'll leave that ambiguous.
That's what I was trying to work out myself.
But the neighbour, fair to say, the Christmas party in the street this year won't be the same. The most unfortunate sponsorship. Very clear winner. Most unfortunate sponsorship. So, they're a fantastic contributor to Australian sport.
Yes, who is?
If Crown Casino had their time again, I think.
Set it up though, because our man, because we couldn't do the awards without our man Nick McKenzie, Winks, getting a mention somewhere.
Winks, Nick McKenzie scooped the pools.
Yes,
at the Walkleys.
I think it was Walkleys, wasn't it? Or Quills, one of the two. Yeah, he does every year anyway. It's just a matter of he just runs first, second, and third every single year in every single major award.
Journalism.
But this one was the takedown of the whole Crown operations.
Yeah, he single-handedly took Crown to task and got them into the Royal Commission and the whole thing. And he won a bag of journalistic awards. Unfortunately for Crown, and a little ironical for him, the awards ceremony was held at Crown Casino, where he was welcomed on stage by the in-part sponsor Crown and acknowledged on the night. And I feel for Crown on that one.
And you took our listeners on that week in question into the conversation that would have been had at Crown that week. Listen, can you just run a by at 7:45 p.m. to announce the major award winner this year of the event that we're giving our space to hold?
Yeah. Young journalist of the year to find the next Nick McKenzie. So anyway, well done, Nick.
Now we'll finish off these awards, Hutchie, with the best clickbait of the year article.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, it's a tough one because seriously, every single article is a clickbait form. Was it Nathan Buckley's girlfriend showing off the abs in a photo walking down the street. I mean, that was right up there.
one
Buddy Franklin, there was 800 footballers being reunited in some form with family, but Buddy Franklin being Eddie Maguire's secret return to TV, even though he had a contract to be on TV after he left Collingwood. Dustin Martin was once wearing underwear, Hutchie, even though it was a paid sponsorship for the brand that he's promoting. There were lots of other articles, Hutchie, but the one that I will forever remember and never forget out of 2021 was Jimmy Bartell walking past his Holder house where the father of two, this is according to the Daily Mail, stared pensively into the distance as he meandered down the footpath, perhaps lost in thoughts about his former life as a married man. That being under a headline, Jimmy Bartell walks past former house. That's the best clickbait article of the year.
Easily the best clickbait. It's the best clickbait article ever done.
He was perhaps lost in thoughts about his former life as a married man.
Yeah, it was terrible.
And it went on too. It gave some detail. He might have been thinking what it was once like to play with the kids in that house. Oh, please.
It was. I always wanted to come up with a post. What is the word? It's not posthumously. It's what? What's the word?
Posthumously. That's twice you've picked up on that one. Posthumously.
Yeah. So the word when
it's
you
not
report on people that have departed.
Yes.
There's been a new unfortunate race that's emerged, which is how to tell an untold story about someone who sadly left us. Yeah. That's happening a lot.
Actually, that is happening an inordinate amount of time. Is it the story insertion, though, as much as anything, isn't it?
The runner-up was Peter Ford's Bert Newton story, but the winner was... Well, Peter Ford had a story that said Bert said he can't tell us till I've passed, and so he did. But the winner was clearly the Bryn Edelson and Jeff Edelson story. Remember that? That's the interview that was forgotten years ago.
I've tried to forget that one.
You can't be sued for it, and so that's the winner. No doubt about that. And I think that's it. Is there one more to finish with?
Yeah, there was one more, but it's probably run its race.
Ran its race 15 minutes ago. Are you kidding me?
I think it ran its race when we ran the stinger for it. Are we going to do that again next year?
Special commendation to the attempt to control the media, the Hawthorn Footy Club, with the briefing.
Oh, yeah.
The Alistair Clarkson briefing 30 to 40 minutes before it happened.
Yep.
And trying to bring the journos into the tent. Bring the journos into the tent award.
It lasted for about 35 minutes of the hour and a half we were there, I think. Yeah.
If you go back and look at the people invited and trusted by Hawthorn into the boardroom, by Clarko and Kennett, at half an hour jump on everyone else, every single one of them was at war with the club inside 48 hours. Every single one of them was at war. And
I think some were at war before the conference too, actually.
Yep. So
anyway, they nearly controlled it for 35 minutes. Hutchie, I think that's it for episode 44, Series 6, which is the final one of 2021. What do you got planned for 2022? Are you going to buy another basketball club, or are you going to sell the Perth Wildcats after selling Melbourne United to buy the Perth Wildcats?
I couldn't even tell you what's on for the weekend, Damo. But we've got questions to drop.
We do.
So we'll save our thank yous for the questions, which will drop tomorrow.
And I want to say a massive thank you to Jane Neal, our producer.
Got 2 more episodes to come, Damo.
Yeah, but this is the main body of the
getting your thank yous out.
We're not doing thank yous in what? The scorecard?
All right, well, you can do your thank yous now.
I'm thanking Jane Neal.
There you go.
No, that's it. I don't want to thank one person. And I'll thank you too.
Jane's done an amazing job as our producer. You can hear Jane's voice in the scorecard edition, and you can, of course, hear Jane on 2CH every day, where she does a magnificent job as the daytime announcer as well. And you can hear her often on Caro's Don't Shoot the Messenger, which gets the lion's share of her production time. We get half an hour to an hour a week.
Well, we got a stinger for the Soundies today.
She works full time for Don't Shoot the Messenger, and
I think she does actually.
Yeah, we get rented. We rent Jane for half an hour a week off.
We used to get a form of a running sheet. We sort of got a couple of bullet points.
As Don't Shoot's grown, our share of
Jane time
has subsided, and we acknowledge that. So well done to everyone involved. Thank you to Drinkwise again, and to Simon Strawn and to Nathan and their team for their unbelievable support. And remember, Damo, when you're
most importantly,
to have a drink, choose to Drinkwise over this holidays. Have a great holidays.
You too.
Good luck in the Sunshine Coast. See you back in March. And
I'll see you back in January, Hutchie.
And this has been the Sounding Board Series what?
6.
Episode
We might have missed the milestone this year. We might have done the 250 this year, and you've missed it.
I could have turned that into a cheesy attempt for an episode, couldn't we?
Could have done a fresh episode.
Thanks for listening to the Sounding Board podcast with Hutchie and Damo for Drinkwise. Make sure you find us on Facebook and Twitter at Sounding Board EP. Hit the sign up button on Facebook to receive our weekly email and subscribe to, rate and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts.